Train, Study, Work, Repeat. The Lunex Unfiltered podcast on balancing sports, studies, and internships. Hello and welcome to the Lunex Train, Study, Work, Repeat podcast, where we talk to student athletes about their experience in studying, training, working, and everything in between. And today's guest is Maïté Barthels, who's a Luxembourger cyclist. And I could name quite a few different achievements that we have here in front of us, because I've printed them out from the website. But I would mention one recent one. She was 26th at the World Championships in Hoogerheide in the Netherlands. And that's really big. World Championships, we're talking cyclo-cross. I'm hoping to talk about that and about cycling and about everything else. Maïté, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me what is cyclo-cross and how many different fields of cycling can we talk about?
Well, there are a lot of disciplines, but my main discipline is cyclocross, and then in the summer I do road cycling and gravel. Cyclocross is basically only in the winter, so it goes from September to end of February. And you race through mud, then in the woods. Maybe in September it's maybe also a little bit drier, so it can also be with sand. Then you have obstacles with stairs, hurdles, all kinds of obstacles that can maybe disturb your rhythm. And it's around 50 minutes and you do laps, normally around 2.5 to 3.5 kilometers. And yeah, I would say in Belgium, it's a very popular sport.
Okay, in Belgium, in Luxembourg?
Yeah, as well. But I would say we have more professionals on the road than in cyclocross.
Yeah, I also noticed when I was preparing that they were kind of mentioning Belgium, France, Netherlands. So we're basically surrounded by the main countries for cyclocross, I would say. In my lay perspective, when you say cyclocross, I already see those cyclists with the bikes on their back. But I guess it's not all the time, right? It's a very small percentage.
Yeah, if you have to, for example, if you have a really bad mud sections where you are faster when you run than when you cycle, then you maybe need to shoulder your bike, or if you have to run stairs or whatever like this, then you need to shoulder it. And therefore you also need to train running, because it can happen that you maybe run for 1 minute in a row. So yeah, it's very versatile, I would say.
Before you tell me how on earth you decided to do this, let's start with the beginning. So we said you're a professional athlete, so I guess you're very young and suddenly you start with some sport. So how did you start? What was your first sport?
My first sport was athletics, and that did a bit of everything, so just for fun. Yeah, at some point, I think after 10 years, I had like a little injury and it was not that fun anymore, and I was also not very talented in it. Then my parents, they also were cyclists, or still are cyclists, my grandparents too. And then I tried cycling and it suited me better and it was more fun for me to do it.
So as you mentioned that your parents are cyclists, they never pushed you, come on, just drop the athletics, start straight with cycling?
No, my parents not, but I know that my grandfather, he was sometimes like, yeah, why don't you start cycling? And I was like, yeah, but I have my friends in athletics and I wanted to keep doing that. And I think that he was very happy when I started. And I would also say that he's a big fan of me. He's like my biggest fan.
That's amazing. Probably more than when you were doing athletics.
Yeah, I think he's supporting us even if we would do another sport. I think he's always happy that we do some kind of sport, and then he supports that, even if it would not be cycling.
So I can imagine that cycling, you kind of suck it with the blood of your parents, if you can say that, right? Because if you have parents like that, you have a grandfather like that, then the presence of the sport is there. But does it also mean watching it? Do you watch a lot of cycling?
It sounds maybe a bit weird, but I watch every cyclocross race, even if I don't do it. We have let's say, not a tradition, but if we come home from a cyclocross race, then we sit by the television, watch it, and we eat while watching it. It's like this every weekend. It's a bit, fun, but that's how we do it.
Of course, definitely. So if ever there's some additional person introduced to the family, they have to be used to eating and watching cyclocross at the same time, I guess. Yeah. Where do you actually watch cyclocross? I don't think it's very easy to find it on TV, or is it?
Yeah, a few years ago, it was a bit difficult. They didn't show everything, but I think since a few years on Eurosport, they show every race that's televised.
Good for you as well. All right. So I have this image already, 10 years of athletics. Then you say, okay, maybe something else. You start cycling. But I guess you didn't start with cyclo-cross as such, or did you straight go into it?
Actually, I did my first race a few months after I started. That was a road race, but that was actually at the end of the road season. It was actually the race that was in my hometown. And then cyclocross started in September and I went to watch some. And then I was to my parents, I want to do this as well. And then, I did I think 2 months after I did then my first cyclocross race. So actually it was my second race was a cyclocross race. So and then I fell in love with it.
Okay. Again, from my perspective, I would find it very difficult to fall in love with it. So what made you fall in love with it?
Actually, I don't know, because the first race I struggled a lot, especially because it's so hard that your back hurts so much. But I don't know why it was so hard, but I still wanted to, I think I just saw the people that were good at it and I wanted to reach that level as well. And there I knew that I just need to keep going. So I just kept going and it was just fun for me to also do the training in the woods and everything.
Okay, yes, there's the fun part as well. So in the beginning you said the athletics was the fun part and then cycling became the fun part, right? Is training fun? Because I assume that's like 5 times a week, right? With 1 day break. Yeah. And it must be, if you're supposed to prepare for cyclocross or cycling, it must be super hard or not?
Yeah, I would say that cycling is one of the hardest sports, like also from all the training perspective, because you need to sit a lot of hours on your bike. And if you, for example, train alone, it sometimes gets a bit boring. But I think just what motivates me to train is because I know then if I do that training, I can, perform good in the race, which is my main goal. So that's what motivates me the most, I think, to also do the training, even if it's a training that I don't like. But
Okay, that sounds a reasonable explanation, I guess, right? It's all about that goal of a race. So what is the race that you're thinking of right now, preparing? Because cyclocross is over, right? You're not preparing for cyclocross.
I do 2 gravel races, which I really look forward to. It will be a long race, I think 5 hours maybe, if I look at the profile and the distance. And then I will do a little break and then it's full focus on cyclocross. I'm already looking forward to cyclocross.
You might be one of the few people in Luxembourg who actually look for winter rather than the opposite.
Maybe the training is better in the summer, but racing I prefer in the winter.
And that also leads me to kind of a typical question, I think that many people think that when you're training for biking, you actually are out there all the time, but it's not true, right? You spend a lot of hours also on home trainers on the bike.
No, actually not, because I don't like to ride indoors. It's like the hours they get so long. So, and even my coach says that it's not good to train more than 1.5 hours inside because you're sweating more. We always say that indoor training is harder inside. So if you do it outside, you would have to do more to have the same effort indoors
So this means that if you train indoors, you train shorter.
Yeah, but I actually never train indoors. Maybe if it's really pouring rain outside or really, really, really cold, then I maybe do some training inside. But basically, normally it's always outdoors, except strength training that I do inside. That's the only training I do inside.
So let's now focus on your typical day, let's say. Difficult to say because it depends on the day, which training it is, right? Yeah. But do you train in the morning? Do you train in the afternoon? How do you adjust it also with studies, of course?
Now, I would say first, I always look at the weather. At the moment, the weather is really bad, so I always take the time of the day where it's the warmest. But I would say if you don't look at the weather, the best is in the morning at 10. That's also where we normally start our training if we don't have anything else to do.
Like recording a podcast, because we're recording at 10, so you can't train right now because of that.
Today I'm going to do it in the afternoon. Okay. But if I have, for example, classes, I of course have to do it in the afternoon. Then I go home, I eat, and then maybe 1.5 hours later I go on the bike. And of course this also depends on how long the training is. Then I need to start maybe earlier or not. So that's how I do it with the training.
And if you train, do you have the trainer with you on the bike, or you just get sent, okay, today you do this and that?
No, not every time. So we have an app, Training Peaks, where our coach puts our training on it, and we can exactly see for how long we need to ride in which zone. And then normally I do it together with my sister or my father together, so us three. And then sometimes we also go to the club training, and my coach is also the coach of our club, so he also does the training there. Maybe in the winter I go there more often than in the summer.
You're right now in your 3rd year at LUNEX, so you already have an experience also of combining studying and training. And how has it been? Has it been pretty flexible, or there were moments where you had to actually train less because you had to study more?
No, I actually could always do my training how it was on the plan. Because I would say that the layout of the whole school is so that you can, as an athlete, maybe lay out your day how you want, or that you also have enough time to do your training. Maybe sometimes I had to skip classes because I had national team training, but that didn't happen often. So that was quite good.
And now you're kind of almost finishing, so I guess it's going to be even easier, or are you planning to continue your studies?
I think when I now finish my bachelor, I will do 1 year only cycling to see how far I can get. And then we will see after 1 year where I will be.
Okay, we might be meeting again. Hopefully the podcast will continue long enough to invite you again to tell us about your achievements, of course, because I'm looking forward to that for sure. So we said LUNEX, I think this is the right moment. What is LUNEX experience for you personally?
I would say that you actually can study sport, and then at the same time you get the support from your school to also do your sport professionally or not besides that. And also have the student athlete status and the scholarships that also helps you to achieve or to be successful in both areas. And I would say that's the LUNEX experience for me.
And when it comes to studying, what were the subjects that really helped you in your training? Was there anything in particular that you just, remember about when you train?
I would say we had some modules about training or testing that was interesting. But then besides training, we had a module about psychology and also nutrition. I think that was also interesting for an athlete to see, for example, in psychology, the different methods to deal with stress or something like that. I think that was also helpful for an athlete.
Because we did not mention, I think we should have in the beginning, that you were studying the sports and exercise program, right? Because I'm just thinking that not everyone might know, and there are loads of other programs as well at LUNEX that you can combine with your training experience for sure, but this is the one you looked at. Does it mean you would ever consider training people yourself, or?
Yes, maybe. For me personally, it's also interesting to look at different strategies to improve training or something like that. So maybe, yes, we will see.
And on the part of the nutrition, because you mentioned it as well, how strict do you have to be?
I would say I am stricter in what I eat, example, before a race or something like that, or general nutrition during a race or after a race. Then I did that in athletics because I was also younger. I didn't know anything about nutrition for a good performance. I would say that it's very important you always look that you have enough carbs during the race or something like that. So actually, I would say that if you're a professional athlete, you always are kind of not an expert, but you kind of know a lot about everything that's about nutrition and training and everything. You're already well knowledgeable about that.
Does it mean that a professional athlete does not enjoy eating because you have to think about it so much?
I would say a lot of professional athletes really like eating or like good food, I would say. Yes.
I'm always imagining, this kind of in the back of your head, oh my God, no, I can't have that because it's too much sugar, or this is, I need more carbs. And so you go to a restaurant and you are really like suffering with all or you don't go to a restaurant?
Yeah, I go to a restaurant.
Okay. No, just asking, just wondering. I recently hosted a professional athlete at home, and I just did not think before, and she stayed for the weekend. And then it was exactly like she said, like, oh, don't worry, I'm having a break right now. So it's okay. Whatever you serve, it's going to be fine. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think that it might be that, she actually would expect certain things at the table, right? So it's just, I guess with anything, when people are on a diet, it's the same story. They have to be careful with stuff.
I would say I would eat like a normal human. But you, of course, before a race, you look that you don't eat, for example, too much milk products or something that's hard to digest before a race. So it's normally dry rice or pasta.
Okay.
Or porridge. That's my go-to meal before a race.
Okay, so we have the food part, but now let's just look at the race preparation as such. So how does it look? Let's say you're preparing for the next cyclo-cross. That's a bit further away, but where do you start? How do you get to the zone of, okay, now I'm prepared?
You mean the day of the race?
Yes.
Okay. The day before, we normally go with my parents. We have a mobile home or camper. We go there the day before, if it's in Belgium or something like that, or outside of Luxembourg. We go there the day before, we sleep there, and then we go to the race. I go to in Belgium, they say inschrijvingen. That's the inscription. And then, my father just prepares the bike. Then normally there, I always eat 4 hours before the race, like porridge, bread, stuff like that. And then I just relax in the camper with my sister, because my sister is racing as well. And then we normally listen to music. It's always like not party music, but like music that you get really motivated. And then, also on the rollers, I listen to music. I think that's something that motivates me. And also it gives me kind of that excitement that you have in the race. Yeah, we always listen to that music. And also before the warm-up, we also do a course reckon where you, study all the lines and see which lines are the fastest. And then my father washes the bike and everything. My mother cleans everything. And then...
So they're really very much part of the team, your parents.
I think in cyclocross, it's a lot that you have your parents that are involved in charge of all they are soigneurs, mechanics. My father always says that in the mechanical post, you always see a lot of parents.
Did your parents also train cyclocross or not?
My father races cyclocross as well, still.
Okay.
I think he also was once national champion.
I'm asking because, I was just thinking that maybe they were supporting you to go into the cycling career, but when you said cyclocross, they were like, oh God, all this cleaning.
No. I think my father, he also likes cyclocross a lot. My mother, when she was young, there was no cyclocross race for women, so she couldn't do that. She only did road. But my father, cyclocross was also very popular in Luxembourg when at my father's age. So my father, he still is racing cyclocross in the masters category. So I would say that he also really likes it. And I would also say that he also likes to, do all that mechanic stuff and everything. So
when he races, who's doing the mechanics?
I think it was, I'm not quite sure, but I think it was also his family. So his father or my grandmother's brothers, they were his mechanics. So, and he was also working in a bike shop. So I guess maybe there were some people who helped.
So it really is a truly family sport. Yes, which is interesting that you started with athletics because, it was really very much present there all the time. You mentioned that women couldn't race before. So I think it's a good moment to move on to feminine subject a little bit. So the subject of your bachelor's thesis, because I found it very, very interesting. And I was also already telling you that I actually did not know, but a couple of months ago, I participated in a survey that you were doing for the bachelor's thesis. So tell us what the subject was and what were your main findings.
So it's about how the menstrual cycle affects sports performance in every level sports. So it was not restricted to a level or someone who does endurance sport or not. It was, open to everyone who does sport. And actually the findings are actually the exact thing I would say that the literature says. So that in the follicle phase. It's the first phase of the cycle, that there you can perform better. And also, in the other phase, you perform maybe worse, or you're feeling worse. And that's also why you should train differently. So actually women train often like men, but actually because of their menstrual cycle that is different to men, you should train differently. When you do, for example, strength training, you should do more heavy weights in the first phase, and then in the second phase you should maybe do more repetitions with less weights. That's how the system works a bit. And maybe if you would train like it's made for women with the cycle, then you can maybe optimize your performance. So that's about that topic.
And that's the appeal, of course, to kind of include these type of studies, because as you said, you wrote your thesis, but there is literature about it as well, more and more, which is very good, that talks about it. And it's, it seems, of course, not everyone confirms it, but quite a lot of studies confirm that it is important to take into consideration. And I even read somewhere that, in certain teams like football, women football team, they're trying to adjust the training. But of course, the difficult part is if it's a team sport, right? Because then you will always have someone who is not really suited for a certain training at that day, right? And also, as you said, it's generally the case, but there are also women who actually have a different body and react differently as well. Yeah,
there were also some who said something else, or said, for example, that they feel better at a different time of the cycle. So then, I would say that, not everyone should train, or every woman should train like according to the menstrual cycle, but you also should then train to your own feeling, how you feel in different phases. Because most participants said that, during their menstruation, they felt really bad and they couldn't do anything. But then there were people who said, when I have my menstruation, then I'm so strong. So maybe then you should just do it different than also the literature says. Of course. And it's also important that, we don't disregard it, because I don't know about you, I'm not a professional athlete, but still, whenever I trained, it was kind of like, it's there, but you're not, you just have a training, you do it. That's life, right? Yeah. Yes. And what I remember from school is that there were always those girls who didn't want to do anything, and they were always blaming menstruation. Oh, sorry, I can't do it today. And I was always like, come on, you have to train. So in a way, if you are brought up with this mindset of a sports person, you're not supposed to mention it as a way of saying, okay, today maybe I take it lighter, right? Yeah. So you, of course, during your whole cycle, you can train. Also, when you have your menstruation, you can train. There's no problem, but you just need to adjust it a little bit, like from the intensity or something like that, that you just adjust it to your, feeling, how you, if you feel weak or strong, you should adjust it. Yes. Would you say that being a professional athlete means that you're a bit better with planning, because you always had to plan trainings and school? And I think that depends on the person. I think I'm a well-organized person. I always like to plan everything, or I need a clear plan. I don't like to have no plan, but I also know people who are not so well organized, but they can still be a professional athlete. So I think this is good, and we will see that also in our series, that is not necessarily, I guess, training a lot and having to combine it with other things. It's a very personal thing, and then probably you will have someone else who will be taking care of the planning, because there's a lot of planning in sports in general, right? And back planning as well. There I have again my father who also does the logistical things. So I don't do everything by myself. Coming back again to Lunex a little bit. If you were to give advice to people who are considering to study, maybe they're professional athletes and they think like, maybe I should also go for a program. What would you say? What has your experience been summarizing it, let's say? I would say that if you are someone who wants to combine your sport with studying something, then I would say that Lunex is a good option, because you have each module after another where you sometimes have 1 or 2 weeks no classes. So it's good to do your sports next to your studies. You have, I would say, enough time. I don't know if you at another university where you have all the modules at the same time, if you would have the same amount of time to also do your training. So I would say it's a good option.
It's a good option. And also, I guess, you, as we said, you learn from professors kind of more theoretical parts that you can then apply.
Yeah, we have some modules that are also related to training. So as an athlete there, you also again learn something for your own sport, let's say. So I would say you learn something around sport. You also have sport management and physiotherapist there. You can also learn something for your own sports. So I would say that it also helps you for your own sports and vice versa.
So we talked about the role of the professors here, but I was also thinking we did not mention the role of the coaches. So how has it been? How has been your experience with coaches?
Yeah, I would say that a coach always with the right training for you can already bring you very far. I had in the past, I would say good coaches, but then at some point they didn't have enough time anymore, or they just were not suited for my needs. I have since 1 year a new coach and I'm very happy with it. I already progressed a lot. Yeah, I'm happy with my coach at the moment.
That's very good. And the whole support team of your parents as well, and whatever. How is it with your sister? Do you compete, or it's just there's different, age, so the competition is not direct?
She's 2 or nearly 3 years younger than me. Yeah, before the under 23 category, you always have, the categories are always for 2 years. So there I was never in the same category, and there the level was also a bit more apart because she was younger than me. But now we are, I would say, nearly at the same level. It also depends on the course. I would say she actually looks a bit like a climber, but she can sprint very well. So there I then do some work for her and vice versa. Again, we work for each other in a road race, but then in the cyclocross race, of course, everyone rides for himself.
Of course.
But of course, there are sometimes a bit of that we are, no, I'm better. But I think that's normal.
But you also cannot do drifting for each other, because in cyclocross you don't have that, right?
No, maybe you can help someone, but it's not there. The tactics and everything, it's not the same. Everyone actually rides for himself a bit.
So it's more individual than road cycling.
On road, as a team, you can achieve more or can help each other more. But in cyclocross, you can maybe do some tactics with being like, maybe I can
carry the bike for someone else.
No, that you maybe are like, for example, if you're in a group and you want to get rid of someone, you maybe study a bit where he's weaker, and then you're like, okay, maybe he's stronger in the downhill than me, so I need to be in the downhill first or something like that. That's then tactics, but it's not the same like on the road. So there I can't help.
Definitely. I think we've gone through your career quite extensively. We talked about LUNEX and the experience and also the bachelor thesis that is coming very soon. So what remains is your plan. So you said that the next year you want to have a gap year, and you said you do like planning a little bit. So what's your idea for now? What do you think? How is it going to look? What are you going to do? Do you have races that you want to participate in?
Of course, I want to participate again in World Championships and a lot more World Cups than last season. But basically, the cyclocross season is always a bit the same. The races are actually, it's in Belgium, they're always the same races. So you just then take the races that suits you best, and you maybe do a training camp in December, and then that's how the season looks. It's always a bit the same.
So, but you, of course, focus more and train more and prepare more.
Yeah. And maybe do some things different than last year with what was not so good to adapt it. And then hopefully it will be a good season.
Of course, I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much, Maïté, for coming today and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
Train, Study, Work, Repeat is a LUNEX Unfiltered podcast produced by Silex.